Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast presented by Saint Church. My name is Caleb, and our hope is to help you study the Word of God every single day. Every day, we're taking time to upload episodes on the Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We read a chapter of the Bible, look at the context it was written in, and we see what it has to say for us today. And we're going to be doing just that by continuing on in Genesis chapter 25. Now, really quick, really fast, if you're over on YouTube and you end up enjoying this, take some time to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. If you're on Spotify and Apple, follow the podcast, leave a rating and a review. It means so much. But with that being said, let's just dive right on in to Genesis 25 as we are going to see the end of our story and journey with Abraham and the start of some new characters being at play. So let's dive in. Verse 1 says this: Abraham had taken another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were the Ashurites, the Leshurites, and the Lemites. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. All these were descendants of Keturah. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, but while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east. Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, the field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Beer Lahai Roi. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's slave Hagar the Egyptian bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, listed in the order of their birth: Nabioth, the firstborn of Ishmael; Kedar, Abdil, Midsham, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of the 12 tribal rulers according to their settlements and camps. Ishmael lived 130 years. He breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people. His descendants settled in the area from Havilah to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt, as you go toward Ashur. And they lived in hostility toward all tribes that related to them. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" So Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. So that's the close of Genesis chapter 25, and there's a couple of important things that we see here. First off, we see Abraham and his death. that ultimately Abraham continued to live life after Sarah had died. He ended up having more family, things like that, but ultimately he still honored the fact that his firstborn son from Sarah was the son of promise that God was wanting to do things through, that being Isaac. And so as Abraham dies, he is buried out next to Sarah in the same tomb in the field that he had bought that we talked about earlier. And then after this moment of his burial, what do we have to realize? The story goes on. It doesn't linger on it. It doesn't lean into it. What are we seeing here? God's the only one that remains. God is the only one in this story that continues forward. Abraham, he dies and is laid in the ground, and we see things carry on. And so after this, we see that Ishmael's descendants are described. Now, why does this matter? It matters because this is something that we could see the Bible just wanting to skate by. If it was trying to tell this just really clean and polished story that doesn't actually look at the complexities of humanity being involved, then Ishmael really would have just been a footnote, but rather Ishmael and his family line, well, they're depicted here. They're talked about here. The Bible actually leans in and says, here is this son whom Abraham also had, and let's look at what happened to him and to his family and his descendants. And so I think this matters for us today because, look, God doesn't just skip over things to try to make it seem cleaner. He's not trying to go and kind of retcon the whole story or that sort of a thing. He's looking and saying, let's tell the full story. Now, after this moment of Ishmael's sons being depicted, we now see Isaac's family expand. Rebekah's without child, similar to Sarah being without child. Isaac, though he prays for her that she would be, she ends up having a child after 20 years of them being together, and ultimately has twins, has Jacob and Esau. Rebekah, she receives a special word from the Lord, though, about them, that the younger would serve, the younger would rule over, is what I mean, that the younger would rule over the older, and that the older would serve the younger. This is such an interesting moment because this wasn't a word that was given to Isaac. It's a word that was given to Rebekah that she held on to, that she had, that she looked to Jacob, and ultimately his name will be Jacob. So she looks to Jacob and she loves him and cares about him, knowing what God has in store for him. Yet Isaac, rightfully so and understandably so, culturally so, looks to Esau with favor because he's his firstborn son. So he looks to him with a higher standing and a higher way of viewing him. Now, really quick, let's lean in for just 1 second about two things that matter in the story of Jacob and Esau. When we look at this cultural moment, there were two things that the firstborn was inclined to receive. One was their birthright, the fact that they were to have the inheritance, but also the weight on their shoulders of leading the family once this patriarch figure had passed. And the second thing is the blessing. The fact that there would be a blessing passed on to them that would signify the favor of God being with them. And so in this moment, when we end up reading about Jacob talking to Esau, I think there's times that we give Jacob a bad rap. He's just being a younger brother. He's just being a brother. He ends up having his brother walk in and he says, hey, I want some soup. I'm famished. I'm going to die. All these things. And really quick, can we just realize what do siblings do to each other sometimes? They make ridiculous claims. They make ridiculous notions and exchanges. And so he looks and kind of like if you were to look at someone and say, I would only do that for $1 million. And they're like, I would do it if you could give me $1 million. I would give you $1 million for that. And you're like, wait a second. I threw that out there because I thought it was so ridiculous you would never do it, but you're actually willing to? Let's make this happen, right? So for this moment, when Jacob looks and says, sell me your birthright, Esau looks and he actually says, sure, I'll do it. That's why Jacob then in return says, make an oath to me that you'll do it, because he didn't expect him to even say yes to it. He didn't expect him to. He's just being a brother. He's just throwing stuff out there. But it says at the end here, it says that so Esau despised his birthright, because Esau did. And Jacob even, the deal was only for soup. He ends up giving Esau also some bread. He's being generous to him. But in this moment, when Esau goes and gives up his birthright, and it ends by saying, so Esau despised his birthright, there's times that we read that with the understanding that because Esau gave it up for soup and bread, he despised it. No. Here's another way to look at it. Because of the way that Esau treated his birthright, we can see that he despised it. We can see he despised it because of how he treated it and how he acted with it. It'd be like somebody going and just squandering an opportunity. They didn't actually want it. Like, there's just this stereotype in Western culture of just like, whether it's a parent trying to vicariously live through their kids, where maybe, the dad really wants them to play a sport and be really good at it. And the kid finally one day is just like, I don't actually like this. And they just throw it away and they look at it and they say, I don't care about this. They despise it. You would look and you would say, based off their actions, you can tell they never really wanted it. Esau didn't want the birthright. He didn't want to be the firstborn. He didn't want the weight of leading the family forward. So he gave that to Jacob. And so we will see in a little bit, though, what Esau did want. But right now, what do we see? We see that Jacob was willing to take on that responsibility. He was willing to take on that weight when Esau wasn't. Again, was Jacob trying to be deceptive? I actually really don't think so. I think he was being a brother who was throwing something out there, and when given the opportunity, he said, oh my goodness, you actually don't want that? Okay, I'll take it on. Now, with that being said, that's what I got for you guys today. So if you got any questions, comment them down below. I would love to dialogue with you. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're on Apple or Spotify, make sure to follow along. We got more stuff, and we got a lot of stuff we've already done, so make sure to check it out. But with that being said, that's what I got for you. So thanks for being here today. See you tomorrow, because we're taking time to study the Word of God every single day.